What if the very energy you usually give away could be transformed into unstoppable focus, creativity, and inner power, stage by stage, day by day? Carl Jung taught that libido is not merely sexual desire but the vital current of psychic energy that animates body, mind, and spirit. When retained and consciously directed, this energy becomes a vehicle for transformation, insight, and personal mastery. Semen retention is more than restraint. It is an alchemical process of psychic evolution. Each stage in this journey reveals new layers of awareness, challenges the shadow, and channels instinct into conscious purpose. By observing the 7 stages of retention, one gains a roadmap to understanding how life force energy, once conserved, can unlock latent creativity, focus, emotional resilience, and spiritual attunement, ultimately aligning the individual with both personal potential and archetypal currents of the psyche. Stage 1. The Awakening. Initial awareness of sexual energy. Stage 2. The Surge. Accumulation and rising tension. Stage 3. The Challenge. Confronting urges and the shadow. Stage 4. The Transmutation. Energy redirected into focus. Stage 5. The Flow. Heightened creativity and presence. Stage 6. The Integration. Harmonizing mind, body, and spirit. Stage 7. The Mastery. Sustained energy, magnetism, and psychic alignment. Stage 1 marks the moment of awakening. The first conscious recognition that sexual energy is not merely a physical urge, but a vital current flowing through the psyche. For Carl Jung, libido is the fuel of the mind, body, and spirit, a force far greater than its common association with immediate gratification. The initial days of semen retention awaken the man to the sheer magnitude of this energy, a reservoir previously dissipated without thought or direction. What was once unconscious habit becomes visible. The repeated cycles of indulgence, release, and subtle psychic depletion are brought into awareness. This is the first step toward mastery, the recognition that energy is a tangible, manipulable force within. During this stage, the man experiences both curiosity and resistance. Awareness brings discomfort, as the habitual patterns of seeking pleasure are interrupted. He notices restlessness, irritability, or subtle anxiety, as the body and mind confront the absence of habitual release. These sensations are not obstacles but signals, messages from the psyche indicating that libido, when no longer discharged, must be observed and consciously directed. Jung would describe this as the first dialogue with the unconscious. The psyche is calling attention to an untapped potential, an unclaimed power that has been surrendered to habitual impulses. The awakening also involves a subtle recalibration of perception. Everyday experiences appear sharper, emotions feel more intense, and mental clarity begins to emerge, even if inconsistently. Dreams, reflections, and fleeting insights hint at the underlying power that has always existed within, now beginning to stir. The libido, no longer scattered, begins to press against consciousness, urging recognition and direction. In this initial phase, the individual begins to realize that restraint is not deprivation. It is the first act of stewardship over one's inner resources. Symbolically, stage 1 is the moment of self-recognition. The man sees himself not merely as a creature of impulse but as a conscious agent, capable of observing, channeling, and ultimately transforming his instincts. The unconscious, through subtle sensations and emerging awareness, begins to teach that sexual energy is the currency of psychic development. Each moment of restraint is a conscious investment, an acknowledgement that this energy can be redirected toward creativity, focus, and personal evolution. In essence, the awakening is both revelation and invitation. It reveals the hidden reservoir of sexual energy and invites the individual to engage with it consciously. This stage sets the foundation for all that follows. The recognition that libido is not simply a drive to be satisfied, but a force to be understood, harnessed, and transformed. Here begins the journey from unconscious indulgence to conscious mastery, a path that, when followed, will reveal the extraordinary potential of the human psyche and the latent power within every man who dares to observe and redirect his energy. Stage 2. The surge is where the energy awakened in Stage 1 begins to build in both intensity and consciousness. Carl Jung would describe this period as the accumulation of libido, not merely a physical force but a psychic current that pulses through body, mind, and spirit. The man now experiences a tangible rising of energy, a force that has long been scattered through habitual sexual activity and is now pressing insistently against consciousness. This rising tension is not a threat but a signal. The psyche is calling attention to a latent reservoir of power, demanding acknowledgement, direction, and transformation. Physically, the surge is often felt as heightened arousal, increased vitality, and a restless energy that cannot be easily dissipated. The body seems to hum with potential. Muscles appear more energized, posture improves, and senses sharpen. The nervous system, previously accustomed to regular discharge, now channels its charge inward, producing both tension and alertness. Jung would interpret these sensations as the body manifesting the intensification of psychic energy, a natural consequence of withheld libido pressing for conscious direction. The individual becomes acutely aware that energy is no longer being scattered, but is accumulating like water behind a dam, building pressure and potential. Psychologically, the surge manifests as increased mental clarity and sharper focus, often accompanied by irritability or impatience. The mind, now freed from habitual distraction, begins to notice patterns previously overlooked, ideas previously unnoticed, and instincts previously suppressed. Yet, with this heightened awareness comes challenge. The unconscious tests the ego, presenting strong urges, fantasies, and impulses. This rising tension is precisely the mechanism by which the psyche signals the importance of conscious engagement. Ignoring it, repressing it, or yielding to impulsive release diminishes the potential of this energy. Confronting it, observing it, and channeling it amplifies personal power. Emotionally, the man experiences waves of intensity. The libido presses against conscious restraint, producing fluctuations in mood, desire, and inner tension. Jung would emphasize that this is the natural response of the psyche seeking integration. Each urge, each surge of energy, is a messenger from the unconscious, pointing toward unacknowledged desires, hidden fears, or untapped capacities. The individual learns that these experiences are not adversaries, but teachers, guiding the conscious mind toward awareness, self-discipline, and mastery over instinctual impulses. Spiritually, the surge represents a liminal space, a threshold where instinct meets consciousness, and where the personal self confronts archetypal currents within the psyche. The retained libido presses the individual to engage with the deeper layers of being, to witness desires without immediate gratification, and to begin the transmutation of energy into purpose, creativity, and focus. Here, the man learns the first lessons of self-mastery. Restraint is not deprivation, but preparation for transformation. Tension is not weakness, but potential. Desire is not a threat, but a tool. The cumulative effect of the surge is both challenging and empowering. The man begins to recognize that energy, when consciously accumulated, can become a source of extraordinary vitality, presence, and psychic influence. The body hums, the mind sharpens, emotions fluctuate yet strengthen, and the spirit senses the latent power of transformation. Jung would assert that this is the stage where the individual confronts the first true test of discipline, the choice to observe and channel rising energy rather than disperse it unconsciously. In essence, Stage 2 is a crucible of awareness and potential. The libido, now intensified, is pressing insistently on consciousness, demanding engagement. The man experiences the dual realities of heightened tension and heightened power. Discomfort paired with opportunity, restlessness paired with clarity, desire paired with possibility. It is here that the journey of semen retention shifts from simple restraint to conscious stewardship of life force energy. A stage that, if navigated with awareness, lays the groundwork for creativity and psychic transformation in the stages to come. Ultimately, Stage 4 embodies Jung's vision of conscious alchemy. Sexual energy is no longer a mere drive to be gratified or a force to be endured. It becomes a conscious current, directed into productive, transformative channels. The individual moves from reaction to mastery, from distraction to purpose, and from scattered energy to sustained focus. This stage marks the first profound proof of the potential of semen retention, that raw, instinctual energy, when consciously transmuted, becomes the catalyst for creativity, discipline, psychic development, and personal empowerment, laying the foundation for the higher stages of flow, integration, and ultimate mastery. Stage 5, the flow, is the stage where the alchemy of retained sexual energy reaches its most dynamic expression. Carl Jung often emphasized that libido is the psychic energy underlying all creativity, insight, and presence, and in this stage, the individual begins to experience the full magnitude of this principle. After awakening, accumulating energy, confronting the shadow, and consciously transmuting libido into focused action, the man enters a state where energy flows effortlessly into creation, thought, and conscious engagement with the world. The flow is not merely productive activity. It is a state of energetic resonance in which body, mind, and spirit operate in profound harmony. Physically, the flow manifests as heightened vitality and a sense of effortless energy. The body moves with precision and efficiency, and tasks that previously required strain now unfold naturally. Muscles, posture, and coordination are enhanced, reflecting the internal harmonization of energy. Sleep becomes more restorative, and subtle bodily awareness deepens, as the individual is increasingly attuned to the internal currents of life force. Libido, now fully integrated, no longer manifests as tension or restlessness. Instead, it becomes a steady, vital stream that fuels physical, intellectual, and creative endeavors. Mentally, the flow is experienced as heightened clarity and rapid cognition. The mind, freed from habitual distraction and the scattered impulses of prior behavior, now processes information with fluidity and precision. Ideas arise effortlessly. Insights appear spontaneously, and problem-solving becomes intuitive. Jung would describe this as the conscious alignment of ego and libido. Psychic energy flows into conscious channels, allowing both intelligence and intuition to operate in tandem. Thought and action become synchronized, producing outcomes of originality, effectiveness, and insight that surpass previous capacities. Emotionally, the flow brings a sense of centeredness and equilibrium. The turbulence of earlier stages, irritability, restlessness, or frustration, is replaced by emotional resilience and adaptability. The individual experiences a profound sense of ease, even when navigating challenges or high-pressure situations. Desires are acknowledged and integrated rather than resisted or indulged, producing balance and presence. This emotional mastery allows for authentic engagement with others, as the individual's energy is no longer fragmented by unconscious impulses, but radiates coherence, stability, and influence. Spiritually, the flow represents alignment with deeper archetypal currents of the psyche. The retained and consciously transmuted libido now resonates with universal forces of creativity, insight, and personal power. Jung would describe this as a moment of individuation in action, where the unconscious and conscious merge in productive and harmonious interplay. The individual experiences a heightened sense of purpose, synchronicity, and connectedness with life's deeper patterns. Energy is no longer personal or self-centered, but becomes a channel for expression that reflects both inner potential and universal harmony. Creativity, in particular, flourishes during the flow. The man may find that artistic, intellectual, or practical projects progress with unprecedented ease. Ideas emerge spontaneously and are executed with precision, reflecting the conscious integration of previously untamed sexual energy. Tasks that once seemed daunting or repetitive now become natural expressions of focus and vitality. In this stage, the libido acts as both catalyst and sustenance for creative work, producing output that is rich, impactful, and aligned with personal purpose. Socially, the flow enhances presence and magnetism. Others are drawn to the individual, sensing the internal coherence and vitality emanating outward. Communication becomes more effective, influence more subtle yet powerful, and relationships more authentic. The energy of retained libido, once scattered and reactive, now amplifies charisma, empathy, and leadership capacity. The man's presence is grounded, confident, and compelling, not through effort or manipulation, but through the natural radiance of harmonized energy. The cumulative effect of Stage 5 is a profound sense of empowerment and fulfillment. Body, mind, and spirit are harmonized. Energy flows naturally into constructive, creative, and meaningful channels. The individual experiences a heightened state of being in which life force energy is both abundant and accessible, producing lasting benefits in productivity, insight, emotional resilience, and relational dynamics. The flow is living proof that semen retention, when practiced consciously, is not merely abstinence but an active cultivation of latent potential. In essence, Stage 5 represents the conscious embodiment of energy, focus, and presence. It is the point at which libido ceases to be tension or temptation and becomes a harmonious, self-directed force. Jung would affirm that this is the stage where sexual energy achieves its highest purpose, the seamless integration of instinctual vitality into conscious creativity, emotional intelligence, and spiritual attunement. The flow is the living expression of the psyche in equilibrium, demonstrating the transformative potential of semen retention when practiced with awareness, discipline, and intentionality. Stage 6, the integration, is where the transformative journey of semen retention reaches a profound synthesis. Carl Jung emphasized that the human psyche operates through the interplay of conscious intention and unconscious energy, and in this stage, the accumulated libido, the vital life force, becomes fully harmonized across mind, body, and spirit. The individual no longer experiences the turbulence of rising urges, the restless tension of accumulation, or the raw confrontations with the shadow. Instead, these energies are consciously acknowledged, channeled, and unified, producing a state of holistic coherence and psychic alignment. Physically, integration manifests as a deep and stable vitality. The body moves with effortless coordination, energy feels constant rather than fluctuating, and health and endurance improve subtly yet significantly. Sleep becomes restorative, metabolism efficient, and even small movements carry the resonance of conscious energy flow. The body is no longer merely a vessel for instinctual urges, but a finely tuned instrument, aligned with the psyche's higher directives. Jung would note that such bodily integration is inseparable from conscious energy stewardship. When instinct and intention cooperate, vitality is maximized, and the organism operates in harmony with its innate capacities. Mentally, the integration produces clarity, focus, and creativity at levels previously unattainable. The mind, having mastered the flow of libido through transmutation, can maintain sustained attention, process information efficiently, and generate insights with remarkable precision. Psychological tension diminishes because urges are no longer suppressed or ignored. They are acknowledged, understood, and redirected. Emotional intelligence increases as the individual perceives not only his inner dynamics, but also the subtle energies of others. Thought, feeling, and intuition operate as a cohesive system, creating a mind capable of deliberate, creative, and impactful action. Emotionally, this stage brings balance and resilience. The man has navigated the fluctuations of desire, confronted his shadow, and learned to harmonize impulses with conscious intent. Emotional turbulence, restlessness, irritability, or impulsive reactivity is replaced by centeredness, patience, and nuanced perception. Feelings are no longer fragmented or reactive. They become instruments of self-awareness, empathy, and authentic engagement. By integrating the accumulated libido, the individual transforms previously destabilizing energies into sustained emotional strength and social presence. Stage 3, the challenge, is the crucible of semen retention, where accumulated sexual energy begins to reveal the deeper currents of the psyche. Carl Jung emphasized that libido is not merely a physical drive. It is the vital force of the psyche, the raw energy that animates thought, creativity, and personal evolution. As the retained energy rises, it confronts the conscious self with the shadow, the repository of suppressed desires, unacknowledged fears, and unconscious impulses. This stage is both testing and transformative, demanding awareness, discipline, and courage. The physical sensations during this stage are intense. Heightened libido manifests as persistent arousal, tension, and restlessness. The body, now attuned to the internal reservoir of energy, seems alive with a force that cannot be ignored. The mind experiences distraction, preoccupation, or sudden surges of craving, yet these sensations are not obstacles. They are signals. Jung would describe them as the language of the unconscious, demanding recognition and engagement. The challenge is to witness these impulses without surrendering to them, to observe rather than act, transforming raw energy into conscious potential. Psychologically, this stage magnifies both strength and vulnerability. Unconscious material rises to the surface. Repressed desires, habitual fantasies, and projections of self-doubt or fear. The shadow, often ignored in daily life, becomes conspicuous, pressing for acknowledgement. To retreat, suppress, or deny these aspects is to risk internal conflict. To face them consciously is to convert tension into growth. Each urge becomes a teacher, revealing patterns of thought and behavior that have long remained hidden, and offering the opportunity to integrate them into conscious awareness. Emotionally, the challenge is felt as a fluctuation of intensity. Irritability, impatience, or anxiety are common, yet they are signs of transformation. Jung would argue that confronting these emotional waves is essential for individuation, the process by which the self integrates conscious and unconscious aspects into wholeness. By engaging these experiences without yielding, the individual develops resilience, patience, and emotional maturity. The libido, once a source of distraction, becomes a tool for building psychological strength. Spiritually, Stage 3 opens a portal to self-mastery. The retained energy compels the man to face his inner realities, illuminating both darkness and potential. Archetypal forces emerge, instinctual energies, creative drives, and latent powers that demand recognition and integration. The shadow is no longer a hidden adversary but a guide to understanding the self more fully. Confronting it transforms sexual energy from a reactive force into a consciously directed current that fuels personal evolution, insight, and presence. The cumulative effect of this stage is profound. By consciously observing urges, resisting impulsive release, and integrating the shadow, the individual begins to redirect libido into focus, creativity, and intentional action. The body becomes a vessel of energy rather than a source of distraction. The mind grows sharper, and the spirit becomes aligned with deeper currents of the psyche. Jung would emphasize that mastery emerges not from avoidance but from engagement, and the challenge is precisely the arena where this mastery is forged. In essence, Stage 3 is the threshold between instinct and consciousness, tension and transformation. The man is confronted with the raw power of his psyche, the accumulated energy that demands both discipline and direction. By facing urges and integrating the shadow, he converts potential chaos into strength, vulnerability into insight, and desire into conscious power. This stage is pivotal. It transforms retention from mere restraint into a transformative practice of self-awareness, emotional resilience, and psychic integration, preparing the individual for the higher stages of transmutation, flow, and ultimate mastery. Stage 4, the transmutation. represents the alchemical turning point in the journey of semen retention. Carl Jung frequently emphasized that libido is not merely sexual energy, it is psychic energy, the fundamental life force that animates body, mind, and spirit. The prior stages, awakening, the surge, and confronting the shadow, have prepared the individual to understand the raw potency of this energy. Now, in the transmutation, the accumulated libido is consciously redirected into focused, purposeful channels, transforming what was once instinctual and scattered into creative, intellectual, and spiritual power. Physically, the effects of transmutation are subtle but profound. The restless energy of earlier stages begins to stabilize, grounding itself in deliberate action. The body feels lighter yet more present, as though the energy retained is finding its proper outlet through motion, posture, and breath. Muscular tone, stamina, and physical vitality are enhanced, but these changes are not merely external. They are expressions of an internally harmonized life force. The energy, once urgent and impulsive, now flows with direction, producing a tangible sense of aliveness that is steady rather than fleeting. Mentally, transmutation sharpens cognition and focus. Tasks that previously seemed mundane or overwhelming now become manageable, even effortless. Concentration intensifies, problem-solving accelerates, and creative ideas emerge with clarity and originality. Jung would interpret this as the conscious alignment of the ego with the accumulated libido, a synchronization of psychic energy and deliberate intention. The mind, no longer fragmented by habitual release or scattered impulses, channels the raw life force into sustained attention and purposeful thought, amplifying both intelligence and insight. Emotionally, the transmutation stage stabilizes the turbulence experienced in earlier phases. The shadow has been confronted, impulses acknowledged, and tension consciously directed. Irritability, restlessness, and emotional fluctuation diminish as energy becomes organized rather than reactive. Emotional resilience grows, allowing the individual to engage challenges, relationships, and inner reflection with calm assertiveness. Desire is no longer a source of distraction or instability. It becomes a vehicle for empowerment, a tool consciously harnessed to enhance mental clarity, emotional depth, and social presence. Spiritually, this stage signifies the integration of libido with conscious purpose. The life force energy, once dissipated in fleeting gratification, now nourishes higher faculties, insight, intuition, and self-mastery. Archetypal energies, symbols, creative drives, and latent potentials align with conscious will, producing a sense of presence and inner authority. Jung would suggest that this is a manifestation of psychic individuation, the ego consciously harmonizing with unconscious forces, turning instinctual energy into a dynamic tool for growth, self-expression, and alignment with universal patterns. The process of transmutation is deliberate. Each impulse that arises is acknowledged, observed, and redirected rather than suppressed or indulged. Fantasies, urges, and spontaneous energy surges are consciously guided into intellectual pursuits, artistic creation, physical training, or meditative practice. This is the essence of alchemy, transforming raw, instinctual energy into refined expressions that enhance life rather than fragment it. The mind-body-spirit axis is strengthened, producing not only increased efficiency and focus but a profound sense of alignment and mastery. The cumulative impact of Stage 4 is both empowering and transformative. The man begins to experience a continuity of energy and focus that was previously impossible. The heightened vitality and mental clarity are not temporary spikes. They are sustained, a testament to the conscious stewardship of psychic energy. The individual gains a sense of authority over his own impulses, an understanding that desire, once acknowledged and redirected, becomes the engine of personal evolution rather than a source of distraction. In practical terms, the transmutation stage enables significant accomplishment. Projects previously delayed are completed with greater efficiency. Creativity flows with originality. Focus is maintained for prolonged periods. Physical stamina and energy are enhanced, reinforcing mental and emotional performance. The individual experiences a harmonious integration of body, mind, and spirit, as the accumulated libido is now consciously converted into life-affirming output. Spiritually, the integration is the culmination of the prior stages. The man experiences an alignment of personal will with archetypal currents, a resonance with the deeper forces of the unconscious that guide growth, creativity, and meaning. Jung would argue that this stage represents a high degree of individuation, the conscious self harmoniously interacting with unconscious energy, producing a coherent and empowered psyche. Dreams, intuition, and synchronicities become richer and more meaningful, reflecting the full integration of instinct, awareness, and life force. The libido, consciously directed, becomes a source of insight, inspiration, and spiritual attunement rather than mere physical desire. The integration stage also illuminates the interplay between energy, intention, and action. Each decision, each creative output, and each interaction with the world carries the imprint of harmonized libido. The individual becomes a vessel for purposeful energy, capable of sustaining long-term projects, creative endeavors, and meaningful contributions without succumbing to distraction or depletion. In this way, semen retention is revealed as an active practice of energy management rather than mere abstinence. The life force is intentionally directed toward growth, mastery, and alignment. Socially, the integration enhances charisma and influence. Others perceive not only presence, but coherence. The alignment of mind, body, and spirit radiates a subtle authority and magnetic force. The individual engages relationships with authenticity and empathy, unconsciously modeling emotional stability, focus, and integrity. Sexual energy, now fully harmonized, underpins influence rather than compromising it, creating an aura of reliability, confidence, and gravitas. Cumulatively, Stage 6 transforms the man from a reactive participant in life to a conscious steward of his own energy. Libido is no longer a source of tension, distraction, or unconscious impulse. It is an integrated current flowing seamlessly through thought, emotion, action, and presence. Body, mind, and spirit operate as a unified system, producing heightened vitality, creativity, emotional balance, and spiritual attunement. Jung would describe this as the embodiment of psychic wholeness, where instinct and consciousness collaborate to produce personal mastery and meaningful engagement with the world. In essence, the integration stage represents the fulfillment of conscious alchemy. Sexual energy, once scattered, is harmonized into a coherent force that fuels creativity, clarity, resilience, and spiritual attunement. The individual has moved beyond struggle, discipline, and tension, arriving at a state of empowered alignment where body, mind, and spirit operate as one. It is the stage in which semen retention becomes more than abstinence. It becomes a practice of holistic transformation, demonstrating the profound capacity of the human psyche when instinctual energy is consciously mastered and integrated into the totality of self. Stage 7. The mastery is the culmination of the semen retention journey, a stage where the accumulated, transmuted, and integrated sexual energy manifests as sustained personal power, magnetic presence, and psychic alignment. Carl Jung would describe this as the apex of individuation, where conscious awareness and unconscious forces operate in seamless collaboration. Libido, once scattered in habitual indulgence, now flows as a coherent life force, energizing body, mind, and spirit in perfect synchrony. The individual has moved beyond mere restraint, beyond the challenges of accumulation and integration, and has arrived at a state where energy itself becomes an instrument of self-mastery, creativity, and influence. Physically, mastery is evident in a presence that is simultaneously vibrant and grounded. The body carries an unmistakable vitality, characterized by strength, endurance, and effortless coordination. Muscular tone, posture, and movement reflect the internal harmony of energy, creating an aura of magnetism that others unconsciously recognize. The nervous system operates with heightened efficiency, producing sustained focus, calm responsiveness, and adaptability. The life force that was once impulsive and reactive has become an internal engine of stability and energetic resonance. Mentally, the individual exhibits extraordinary clarity, strategic focus, and creative capacity. Attention can be maintained over long periods without fatigue, and cognitive processes operate in near-perfect alignment with intention. Jung would interpret this as the conscious alignment of ego with the accumulated libido, a psychic synthesis that allows thought, intuition, and insight to function as a unified force. The mind becomes a channel through which latent potential flows effortlessly into productive action, whether in intellectual pursuits, artistic creation, or problem-solving. Emotionally, mastery manifests as unwavering equilibrium. The turbulence of earlier stages, restlessness, irritability, emotional fluctuation, is replaced by composure, resilience, and deep self-awareness. The individual navigates social and personal interactions with discernment and empathy, responding rather than reacting. Desire, fully integrated, enhances engagement with life rather than disrupting it. Emotional energy is consciously directed, transforming instinctual impulses into tools of insight, influence, and authentic connection. Spiritually, this stage represents the highest degree of alignment with archetypal currents. The retained and transmuted libido resonates with the unconscious forces of creativity, wisdom, and purpose. Jung would assert that this is the living embodiment of psychic wholeness, the conscious self functioning in harmony with unconscious energies, producing not only personal growth but a heightened attunement to universal patterns. Dreams, intuition, and synchronicities become vivid and meaningful, reflecting the integration of body, mind, and spirit into a coherent field of energy and presence. Socially, mastery radiates magnetic influence. Others sense the energetic coherence and vitality of the individual, responding unconsciously to the harmony of his presence. Leadership, persuasion, and relational depth become natural extensions of his internal alignment. Sexual energy, once private and potentially distracting, now contributes to an aura of magnetism and authenticity, enhancing influence without manipulation. The cumulative effect of Stage 7 is a sustained, holistic empowerment. Libido functions not as a source of tension or temptation, but as a consistent and directed life force, capable of fueling long-term productivity, creativity, emotional resilience, and spiritual attunement. The individual has learned to observe impulses, confront the shadow, transmute energy into focused action, flow effortlessly in creativity, and harmonize the totality of body, mind, and spirit. The final stage, mastery, represents the embodiment of this process. Conscious energy stewardship resulting in psychic alignment and amplified personal power. In essence, the mastery stage demonstrates the ultimate potential of semen retention. Energy is no longer reactive or scattered. It is consciously guided, sustained, and aligned. Body, mind, and spirit operate in synchrony, producing heightened presence, magnetic influence, and a profound sense of inner authority. Jung would describe this as the culmination of psychic individuation, where the conscious self harmonizes fully with unconscious life force, transforming sexual energy into a continuous engine of creativity, insight, and personal power. Stage 7 is not an end, but a state of dynamic equilibrium, a living expression of human potential when instinct, awareness, and energy converge. It is the proof that semen retention, practiced with discipline, conscious engagement, and integration, is a path not only to self-mastery, but to an extraordinary alignment with the latent forces of the psyche, revealing the hidden power within every man who undertakes the journey. The journey through the 7 stages of semen retention is, at its core, a journey into the depths of the psyche. What begins as conscious restraint evolves into the awakening of latent energy, the confrontation with the shadow, and the alchemical transmutation of instinct into power. Carl Jung taught that libido is more than sexual desire. It is psychic energy, the vital force that animates body, mind, and spirit. By observing, directing, and integrating this energy, the individual transforms not only his impulses, but his entire being. From the initial awareness of sexual energy in stage 1, through the rising tension of the surge, the confrontation with urges and the shadow, and the disciplined redirection and transmutation, each stage builds upon the last, guiding the individual toward flow, integration, and ultimately mastery. Creativity, focus, emotional resilience, and spiritual attunement emerge as natural consequences of consciously stewarded energy. The body becomes alive with vitality, the mind sharp with clarity, the emotions balanced, and the spirit aligned with deeper archetypal currents. By stage 7, mastery is realized. Libido functions not as scattered impulse but as sustained life force, producing magnetism, presence, and psychic alignment. The man becomes a conscious steward of his own energy, capable of shaping his reality with intentionality and insight. Semen retention, when practiced with awareness and discipline, is revealed not as deprivation, but as the path to inner power, self-mastery, and the harmonization of body, mind, and spirit. It is here that the hidden potential within every man awakens, demonstrating the extraordinary alchemy of conscious sexual energy.